So there I am, busy writing for the next 5-minute review of Wrath and Glory when the pre-orders for the Forsaken Player's Guide randomly drops on the C7 site. And boy, what an absolute treat. The book works out at a solid 30 quid here in the UK, and Cubicle 7 have pulled through again and given us a free PDF upon purchase so that we get to digest all the information it gives us immediately. I remember back in June 30th of last year when they first teased us with a brief overview of what to expect. They said something like, this will expand on our character options, game mechanics, and dismal darkness of the 41st millennium. Well, they weren't lying. So, what's in the book? There's just over 140 pages of goodies to unpack here. New archetypes, new races, new equipment, new psychic discipline, lore, factions, patrons, and endeavours. The main thing that sticks out to me are the massive 20 new archetypes. I've broken them down into tier groups on the screen for you now. I won't go into massive detail because it's just meant to be a quick review, but there are 5 for the Sisters of Battle, 4 for the Formidable Space Marines, we've got 4 for the Adeptus Mechanicus, 1 for the Adeptus Ministorum in the form of a Confessor, 3 for the new Abhuman playable races, 1 in the form of a Lex Mechanic, who interestingly is like Adeptus Mechanicus and Inquisition, and 1 for the Inquisition in the form of the Interrogator, and last but not least, the Croup Mercenary. Obviously I'm trying to keep this short and around 5 minutes, and I haven't had a few days yet to really drill down and analyse everything for myself, so I won't go into massive detail about them all here, but major points about the new archetypes are as follows. Note these aren't necessarily criticisms, but actually like personal wants more than anything. There's no new Alidiari archetypes, bit of a shame. In fact, whilst I was discussing this with friends, 2 out of the 5 asked me about the Alidiari first. Maybe it's just the company I entertain. Currently there are only 3 archetypes. There's the Tier 1 Corsair, the Tier 2 Ranger and the Tier 3 Warlock. It would be good to see an expansion on the Alidiari archetypes further down the line. Maybe something like Striking Scorpion, or Howling Banshees, or Fire Dragon. Maybe we might see these appear as Tier 3 or 4 entries in a future update. The same goes for the Orcs as well. Currently there's only a Tier 1 Boy, Tier 2 Commando and Tier 3 Knob. Part of me hoped for a dedicated Pain Boy and dedicated Weir Boy, like a Tier 4 entry or something, with specific Orc psychic discipline as well to accompany this. The Pain Boy is actually an entry for a Xenos threat in the core rulebook, and the Weird Boy gets briefly mentioned in the Psychic Mastery section of that book as well. Once again, I can hope for these in a later update. As for Croup, there's only 1 archetype currently, and that's the Croup Mercenary. I'd love to see a Tier 2 entry for the Croup Shaper. I would have also kind of loved a sneaky rogue-like archetype for the Rattling, or even more famously, a Rattling Slopper, maybe as a support type role or something, which would have been an excellent and fun addition to the Rattling archetypes. And yes, I get that technically you can take the foundations of the Rattling race and maybe combine it with a Ganger archetype, or even just use the Sniper one with your choice of attributes to create your own sneaky small guy, but the unique entry would have been great to have with an accompanying ability to reflect this, even if it is a little bit cliche, you know, the small rogue trope. The inclusion of the Balgrin archetype is brilliant. I love seeing Ogrins and Balgrins on the board, and glad they have the BONE upgrade to allow them to be more intelligent for roleplay and chatting and things. So I've mentioned them in the archetypes, but there are 3 new races that are playable, and they are part of the Imperium roster. Those are the Rattlings, the Ogrin, and the Kroot. The first 2 are Abhumans. Abhumans are human-like species who are close cousins, or at least close enough for the Imperium to tolerate them. The second came as a surprise to me, but in a very good way. The Croup Mercenary. These Xenos are like carnivorous and cannibalistic in nature, and actually ally themselves with the Tau more than often. It's a strange one. I kind of thought maybe Beastman would have been more appropriate, but happily have the Kroot under my belt for people to pick from and to encourage, you know, some excellent roleplay opportunities, you know, with their own stigma and characteristics and things. So, yep, welcome that addition. So there is so much lore in this book. It is dripping with lore. The locations and planets in the Gilead system are expanded on. I absolutely love the adventure hook suggestions thrown in. These are excellent, and I'll definitely use them in both scenario building and informing my players of what these planets are like. There's a faction section, The factions are also expanded on, so there are various patrons spread throughout the Gilead system. They really help the player get to grips with the kinds of factions they will come up against, their goals, their behaviours. This helps pad out backgrounds for both players and NPCs alike. There's also Alidiari and Orc and Chaos factions in there too, which is great. It means that we're not just stuck with the Imperium ones. They can bump into these other factions and war with them and things, or maybe even just do things for them on the sly. Patrons. So these colourful characters are expanded upon and introduced. Plenty to pick from, surprisingly including 2 Alidiari, an Orc and a Death Guard patron. And you get plot hooks and their goals and desires too. This is pretty much GM only material, giving you advice on how to roleplay them as quest givers. So if you're a player and you don't want your mind being influenced by what you're reading, maybe just avoid these sections if you can, and leave your GM to paint the picture for you. If you're okay with that and you want to read anyway and you're not going to be affected by metagaming, go ahead. It's great content, the characters are really great, lots of fun there. Yeah, go for it. There are also a few more entries to the equipment, augmetics, weapons, weapon types and armour sections as well, some of which are more relevant to the new races, but there's something in there for everyone. They also included a rule for using multiple mechadendrites, which makes sense to me, and popped up a few times as questions amongst players as well, so that's great to see a clarification on that. They also introduce a new psychic discipline here, the Librarius discipline. It's specifically unique for the Adeptus Astartes. Like I said previously, would have loved one for the Orcs, and I would have loved one for the Alidiari as well, just a little specific bit of flavour there, but I'm pretty sure that's something they'll be working on in the future. So the Endeavours section. Last but by no means least, there's a section on Endeavours. These act like professions or events in MMOs, and can be done during downtime between sessions, or even personal time when your characters are travelling between locations or waiting for something to happen. Endeavours can be simple things from performing tests to create items for sale or trade, or repairing parts of the ship, or full-on events that can affect the performance or mood of the character for the next session. It also can involve duties and responsibilities on a personal level, a team or factional level, such as prayer, worship, or combat training. These are almost always completed using a series of relevant skill tests. There's something for everyone in here, it's absolutely packed full, but on the rare occasion the thing you're looking for isn't in there, they've made the mechanic nice and easy to adapt to an endeavour that one of your players might like to partake in. So my conclusion, this book is amazing. It has some excellent inclusions and the lore section has so much detail that will aid you in creating the worlds and the characters for you to play in. Especially with the inclusion of the adventure hooks, they are a genius inclusion. The artwork is amazing, hats off to those guys that create all the art. The introduction of Rattlings, Balgrin and Crew are welcome additions. As I've said previously, I would have loved to have seen more love for the Alidiari and the Orcs, namely a couple more archetypes and their own unique discipline, but I have faith that these are in the works. Overall, this book is absolutely bang for buck and you should go grab it right now. Well, thanks for listening and I'll see you again.